I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I did. That's okay, first thing is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any questions, additions, corrections to the existing agenda?
Second.
I got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Maggie Bass, to approve the agenda as presented. If there's nothing else, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. We're on to the first thing. I know Jeremy would like to be here, but he couldn't make it because they're doing some interviewing to fill another position. So Mike is going to take over.
Well, so much for my memo to you that we're at full strength with the 2 appointments tonight, because we got another one in that I'll review in just a second. But what you have in front of you is a recommendation from Fire Chief Jeremy Tikalsky to appoint 2 new individuals to become new Prague volunteer firefighters, effective tomorrow, October 8th, 2019. In recent weeks here, we had one retirement, that being Phil Werner, and then we had a resignation from Mr. Nick Peters, who has moved on to bigger and greater opportunities, likely up in the Twin Cities. So we are recommending the hiring of Matt Ambrose and Tom Ewert to fill those 2 spots. And as you saw in my memo, that with these 2 appointments, we're back to full staffing. That was until after I finished this last week, Jeremy informed me that Steve Kartek has chosen to retire off the fire department effective October 1st. So they're interviewing tonight to replace his position. So that's why Jeremy can't be here. But his recommendation is, as I've summarized as well in my memo, to appoint Matt Ambrose and Tom Ewert as firefighters effective October 8th.
What kind of action do you want? Do you want to split it? Do you want to do the fire chief, Jeremy, and then?
No, Jeremy's not.
The recommendation is from the fire chief.
Oh, I see what you're
Right. We're just we just need a motion to approve Matt Ambrose and Tom Ewert
As new firefighters.
as new firefighters. Okay, got a motion by Rick Seiler, and I will second that. So if there's no other comments or questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Moving right along. Ken?
All right, so looks like item number 2 is the certification of unpaid mowing and property maintenance charges. So I kind of handle that separate from the utility billing one. So as we do every year, from basically September 15th of one year to September 15th of the following year, we have various snow removal, mowing, junk cars, other debris in the yard violations that we have letters that go out for. This year we had 63 violation letters that were formally sent and logged into our nuisance tracking system. We ended up having only 7 properties that we actually had to initiate cleanup on the city's end and then assess them ultimately here tonight, where they hadn't paid their bill previously. So those notices went out by September 15th, and these 7 remaining property owners did not choose to pay. Those are properties are listed on kind of the 2nd or 3rd page, I guess you'd call it. There are 7, excuse me. Yeah, 7 properties or lots, and it looks like there's only 3 on the list. Actually, 5 of them are railroad property. So that's, if you had that question, we just lump the railroad all into one. They typically do pay, but we usually get to this point to get their attention. The other 2 were the other properties that we had done some mowing on. We're actually right where we've been in 2018 and the past few years in the property cleanup charges that we've had, which is down from years past. We do a pretty good job keeping on top of everybody, hopefully throughout the year, and do get good compliance without having to actually do the cleanup. So first resolution would be consideration tonight for the mowing and property maintenance charges on that first resolution. And we do have to have this action taken tonight, so we get that certified to the auditor of each county by October 15th. So we usually do that first meeting in October every year.
If we pass this resolution, the property owners have an opportunity to pay before it goes on the tax?
They can actually still pay until we actually certify that to the county. And there's even a little bit of wiggle room in there even after that, as long as the county hasn't kind of shut their books on the matter and put it into their tax system. But generally speaking, they have a couple more weeks to get paid. And we usually do get a few more that end up coming in.
Okay.
But they have previously already have been sent notice to take care of it before it even gets here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll by this point, they already have to pay an additional fee for our assessment process that we're in here tonight. So it's an extra $75 that we charge if we get to this point.
Okay.
What's the administration fee or what other fee is
So
involved in this?
every time we mow a property or do cleanup, whatever it might be, every time we have to go out there, we charge $50 basically for staff time to initiate a contractor to go out there and do that cleanup. So that's for every event. So that helps offset some of the staff time, basically calling a mowing contractor or calling Lakers to do a garbage pickup, that type of thing.
And the city pays the cost?
Correct. We pay the cost up front and then we collect it with the next year's taxes.
So we charge interest from the time we pay it to the time of the assessment?
We have not historically done that. That is something we could look at doing. I think just for the ease of the one-year time period, we haven't charged interest for that. We've had pretty good collection without charging it. But
And then my understanding of the resolution, it refers to an assessment payable in 1 year. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep, 1 year.
But this, the ordinance doesn't really talk about that. Is that?
It's just what we're recommending, that just be paid off. Usually the dollar amounts are of an amount that we just want to clear the books in that 1 year before we get to the next year of property maintenance items that we get to.
But the city receives interest through the assessment, don't they?
We do not.
You don't get the
We-
statutory interest?
We have never set that up to collect that in these assessments that we've done for the property maintenance. Not saying that we couldn't, but we
There's
have.
been the administrative charge every time we have to go out and go through the mowing on each of those different mowings. So there's a fee there, and then we charge the $75 fee administratively because we have to record this against properties, which is the reason for the $75 fee for each one of these. But no, there's not been a formal process to set up. We've not had troubles collecting payment in the following year. In fact, we've had some discussion is that, okay, if we were to start running into that, are we going to have to look at changing the process and doing something different? The council has the flexibility that you could determine to change the repayment period. You could choose to add interest. The council has that flexibility. With how that they had been doing it before I arrived, this system has generally worked.
So in this 1 year time period, there's no interest charged either?
Correct.
And then in the history of doing this, it's always been a year regardless of the amount, whether it's 10,000 or?
We haven't had too many that have gone that large. Typically, we're talking a few $100s under $1,000. When we get to the utility one, you'll see there's a $6,000 one on there.
Yeah, without elaborating, that's certainly what caused me to ask the question.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we just typically haven't had large on one property, other than I guess we've had developers where they've had large developments that they weren't mowing, but then it's still individually per lot that we're assessing that to. And they've just been paid over a 1 year time period.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the resolution to put the mowing and property maintenance charges on the tax roll.
So
Second.
I got a motion by Sean Ryan, second by Maggie Bass. If there's no other comments, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0.
All right, so the next one will be unpaid utility bills. This is basically everything other than the electric charges on the utility bills that we collect on. So it could be storm, sewer, sanitary, and water. Going back to 2009, we've been using this rather than bringing those to a collection agency for the unpaid charges that we have in utility bills. As kind of noted during the last agenda item, it was noted that if you look on the resolution for the utility bills, we did have the one item, again, typically, a few $100s, and then the one at the very bottom is for a private water line repair, nearly $6,500 for that one item. So I do want to call attention to that. Bruce and Patty can elaborate on that more if you have any questions. But typically speaking, again, as with the utility or mowing charges, it's been a 1 year, no interest collected during that time period. So same timeline as for the mowing that we're up against here as well.
Are we seeing a trend with any of these property owners year over year not paying?
On utilities, or?
We can go back to mowing, but on utilities.
I think I can speak to the mowing. We generally run into that if it's a bank-owned property or a house going into foreclosure. You might have a few-year time period where we'll eventually get that straightened out and it'll get sold, and we'll have to deal with that again. I can't speak to utility bills. I guess I'll defer to Bruce and Patty on that.
Typically, we don't see that because a lot of them are renters.
Okay, thanks.
Can you feel, do we have many assessments receivable that have not been paid in that 1 year time period?
No.
No.
So if we're charging the property, so if these delinquents are renters, then the property owner is responsible for that, and then and that's what we kind of agreed upon in that one.
Correct.
Right.
Was
Yeah.
that 5-6 years ago
Yeah.
that we had that meeting with landlords? Okay.
What's the limit of past due bills before you shut them off?
Kind of depending on the time of the year, Rick, in regards to the cold weather rules. Sometimes we have to stretch it out a little longer than others, but typically we try not to go past a 2-month time period.
So you're looking at a $400 bill?
Correct.
400 at the very.
That's pretty typical, yeah.
Mhm.
Again, we can't assess the electric part of it, so therefore that's the part that the utility itself has to write off.
Mhm.
Only water, sewer, and trash, those components can be assessed to the landlord.
Yeah, and it has to be, the secondary on the application is always the property owner, so they can't, their dads can't be a co-signer on it, it's gotta be the property owner.
Not necessarily.
What's the question?
The question was whether it could be an outsider like that could be the co-signer, and then if they are delinquent, they move out, so then we go after the property owner or whoever's second.
The third party
co-signer.
can be anybody.
Oh, the third.
Typically, it is the landlord,
Mhm.
but it can be a parent or, if somebody else wants to be notified
Right.
if the bills aren't being paid.
And do we notify the owners if a renter doesn't pay? Do we notify the owners or we just deal with
Yes.
the renter?
No, we notify the owners.
But there are certain limitations within that.
Well, there's only limitations if we can't get a hold of the owner. But otherwise, we have all of the owner's names and addresses and telephone numbers. So we physically call those.
Mainly to notify them that we're gonna
Shut 'em off.
terminate services if it continues to not be
And
paid.
if you guys had the option, would you tighten that up a little bit so that, you're shut off? I mean, as soon as we can shut you off, you're off. Is that how we do it, or?
We adhere to a pretty tight schedule as it is, Granted, our billing period is about almost a month and a half past the consumption period.
Mhm.
So we kind of start in the rears to begin with, but then we follow our process to do collections. And so you could be almost 3 months into it, by the time you decide this is it.
Mhm.
But we do give ample notice. So you get your bill, you have 15 days to pay. When it's not cold weather rule. If it's
Right.
cold weather rule, it's 20 days. After that point, we send a letter to say, you're delinquent, we're going to turn you off tomorrow at 10 o'clock if you don't get a hold of us. Or we hand deliver that.
And
We
do
hand
hand
deliver
delivery
it
besides,
And that's to the owner of the property, not the renter.
to the renter.
to the renter.
To the renter. Because that was one of the landlord's complaints, is that, you know, a tenant can move in and fight you for eviction, run up the electrical bill, and not be able to get evicted for 3 months, you know, and then they end up with a big electrical bill. But my argument is, what's the highest heating bill, you know? $100 a month?
More.
Is it? Well, I'm
A
going
lot
for what
more.
I pay, so.
Yeah.
But I think the mayor said, as we went through this whole process with landlords and the utilities and trying to tighten this up as tight as we have it now, several years ago, to make sure that we have it as good as we could get it. It also depends on whether the landlord, as you say, if they're on with the tenant in that, so that they are able to receive the notice. They didn't used to. It used to be just the tenant, and the landlord wasn't on the notice. So that did compound the question that you're trying to describe. But now they changed their leases and how they handle that to rectify that.
And that question I'll ask in October when we do the landlord thing. But okay, yeah, if anybody else got questions, otherwise I'll move.
That was by state law though, Mike, right? That there was a privacy thing between the tenant unless they had.
For
Yes,
third party
unless
stuff.
unless the
Yeah.
landlord put it
Yeah.
in their lease that they were
Correct.
notified.
Exactly.
And that's what helped tighten up the process
Right.
and reduce their exposure.
I'll move it.
Anyone have any other questions, comments? I got a motion by Rick Seiler to remove the, putting the utility bills on the tax roll.
One second.
I got a second by Sean Ryan. If there's no other comments, questions, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes.
Thank you.
5-0.
Thank you.
Take it easy on the equipment.
Mayor and council, in front of you is a 3-year proposal from Abdo, Eick, and Meyers to conduct the city's audit for 2019, 2020, and 2021. Abdo has been conducting the city's audit since 2006 and the new Prague utility since 1999. The city audit encompasses the general fund, capital projects, debt service, special revenue funds, and all the enterprise funds. The proposal for the next 3 years projects a 0 increase in 2019 and approximately a 2% increase in 2020 and 2021. Throughout the year, staff has developed a successful working relationship with Abdo and has been very satisfied with their work and the relationships that they have built. So the staff is recommending that the city council accept the proposal for 2019 through 2021 audit years.
And has anyone, have we ever gone out for bid in the last 10 years or so?
We did.
Okay. And Abdo was
They were
competitive?
lower.
Okay.
It's really kind of a comfort zone too with them because they're very versed in municipal utility and you don't find it in all the audit firms. So we just have developed a really good relationship with them understanding our books and
I think that would be my comment. For such a size of a contract that's 3 years and the dollar amount, I would have expected to see a perhaps peak. But since your staff has been supportive of the relationship and developed a good relationship, that would be a good reason to not do that. But it is a long term.
Plus you have the long-term obligations of going into it, as Patty said. It's one thing to understand what's in the utility agreement, but then we get into all of our capital projects, the special projects, and the other things, as far as the database that gets built up. And if we have to start fresh and scratch with somebody we're talking a whole brand new learning curve to go through and spend time recreating the background and the history.
Yeah, I think there would be additional work for
We
staff,
have on
but
that.
all accounting firms would take that into consideration when they would bid it, so that cost.
They do, and they get their foot in the door, and then we see the pricing go back up the other way.
Good.
We are not required under the statutes, because they're professional services, we're not required to bid out auditing, engineering, financial assistance, legal, any of those services. And so the dilemma is as Patty said, that a number of years ago, we did solicit proposals, and Abdo again was the low proposal. And so we're back in it, and we thought, and looking at the, the 0 and the 2, and the third year, above the 2, that that's a pretty good proposal, and we're about ready at some point in this time period as well to potentially go through some transition issues, possibly in staffing in some of our key positions. And I don't think you want to be going through that process with some potential voids and having to make changes with a new auditor on board.
As I said, I support the recommendation, but I would have expected in a normal situation with my past experience with audits and things that you would have normally seen some due diligence on pricing. I did see my own review to see that it's within the ballpark for the city this size, so I feel comfortable.
Okay.
So the bank says yes, I say yes.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the auditing agreement. Second by Rick Seiler. If there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Actuary evaluations, GASB 67 and 68.
Yes, in front of you, you have two proposals. One for the GASB 67 and 68, and then another one for GASB 75. So just a little history. In 2015 and again in 17, the City Council entered into an agreement with Hildi to prepare an actuarial valuation of the new Prague Volunteer Fire Relief Association to satisfy the accounting requirements under GASB 67 and 68. GASB 67 applies to the financial reporting prepared for the Relief Association plan itself, where GASB 68 applies to the employers of the pension plan. Basically, the city is financially responsible for the pension plan under Minnesota statute, and the Fire Relief Association plan must be recognized in city financial statements in order to be in compliance with GASB 68. Listed below, I have the costs. The first year, 2019, will be $2,350, and for the second year, it's $1,050. And the reason of the decrease is because it's only updating the disclosures.
The second year.
The second year. Then again, in 2017, the City Council entered into an agreement with Hildi to prepare GASB Statement 75. The primary objective of this statement is to improve accounting and financial reporting by state and local governments for post-employment benefits other than pensions. The post-employment benefit primarily involves health care benefits. It can include life insurance, disability, and other services, but in the city's case, it only is for health insurance benefits. Because the benefit is made available to employees upon retirement. I've listed the cost for that. 2019, it's $2,000, and in 2020, it's $500, and again, they're just updating the disclosures. So my recommendation would be to accept the two proposals from Hildi for the Volunteer Fire Relief Association GASB Statements 67 and 68, and the actuarial valuation report and the GASB Statement 75 for the post-employment benefit plans under the pension report.
So Mike, the expenses for the Volunteer Fire Relief Association, is that borne by the fire department or is that borne by the city?
was borne by the city and the fire department budget.
It's split.
Pardon?
We split it.
Is that what you've done?
Mhm.
Like 50/50 type deal?
Like we do all the expenses with the fire
Oh,
department.
with the rural.
Oh, with the rural, but
Yes.
yeah.
It's in the fire department
Yeah.
budget.
The 2350 and it is really going to show up in the fire department budget.
Half of it will.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a really tough question. What's GASB? What does the acronym stand for?
Governmental
Yeah,
Accounting
actual.
Standards Board.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So it's a regulatory type.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's generally accepted in the county world, for the bean counters of the world. It's the standards that govern how they're supposed to conduct their work. But yeah, Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And on the one on the healthcare, the second one that Patty referenced, on healthcare, we don't really have any major obligations there because we don't provide any continuing healthcare benefits upon employees leaving employment other than what they're allowed to pick up under the COBRA benefits for the 18 months, except they can choose to be on the city's plan provided they make the payments for the benefits. Right?
Beyond the 18 months?
So what happens is if you leave employment with the city, you have your 18 months in COBRA. If you retire with the city, you have the option to pay the employee, the health insurance up to the age of 65, once you're eligible for Medicare.
But there is no city-provided or paid for health
Right.
insurance benefits.
It's 100% employee paid
Correct.
or ex-employee retired.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just one question, does it fluctuate up and down? Because I noticed it's a very specific or detailed contract. I mean, everything from lodging to everything else back in here?
We've never had those expenses.
Okay.
The fixed fee has been pretty consistent
Correct.
in what we've paid for it, but under their contract, they're allowed to include those things, but we haven't had to,
We haven't ever been billed for it?
no.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
So if you wanted to, if you saw fit, you could probably combine both of them at the same time if you wanted to.
Sure, that would be fine. I guess I'll make a motion to approve both the GASB 67 and 68 agreement with Hildi and the GASB 75 agreement with Hildi.
Second.
I got a second by Maggie Bass. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. Thank you, Patty. You're doing the next one too? Okay. All right.
So in front of
This
you
is-
are,
Whoa. You need a water break?
I think the twins play at 7:40. Okay, in front of you now I have two resolutions. The first resolution authorizing membership in the League of Minnesota Cities 4M Fund, and the second resolution amending and appointing official depositories for city funds for 2019. So just a little background here. The 4M Fund is a customized cash management and investment program sponsored and governed by the League of Minnesota Cities for Public Funds. Is designed to address the daily and long-term investment needs of Minnesota cities and other municipal entities. Currently, the city has been utilizing the money market fund at their current bank, which is now earning about 1% interest. For comparison, as of October 1st of 2019, the 4M money market fund was paying 1.73% to 1.79%. These rates change on a daily basis, but based on the current spread between our current money market account and the 4M money market rates, the city could realize significant increase in interest revenue. Today, I have Corey Boyer, Municipal Advisor with PMA Financial Network, LLC, to introduce the council to the 4M Fund program and take the council through the various short and long-term investment options available to the city in the program. Upon Mr. Boyer's presentation, I would ask you to please approve the two resolutions, the one to enter the 4M Fund, and then secondly, the one amending the official depositories for the city funds in 2019. Corey?
Thanks, Patty. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to come out tonight. I was told when I got here that there might be a baseball game or something going on this evening, so I had to go fast. So we'll get through this pretty quick. So just background, again, my name is Corey Boyer with PMA Financial. I'll kind of explain who PMA is in relation to 4M Fund. I was out several weeks back and met with Mike and Patty and kind of talked a little bit about it and kind of what they're working with locally and how the program may be beneficial to the city. So they thought it'd be good to get out and introduce it to the council and kind of go through and answer any questions that you might have. As Patty mentioned, the 4M Fund is sponsored and governed by the League of Minnesota Cities, so this is their fund. It was established back in 1987 by the League of Minnesota Cities. Under Statute 118A, it's considered a joint powers investment trust. In our world, it's called a local government investment pool. It's pooling the dollars by local government units. 4M is really the only fund like this for cities in Minnesota. There are other local government pools in Minnesota. We have one for school, there's a couple for schools, there's one for counties. So it's kind of a very niche market that governmental units can take advantage of, and they're all over. It's not just in Minnesota, there's Wisconsin, Iowa, and we do a lot of work with those as well. So PMA Financial Network was hired by the League back in 2007 to administer the fund. So administration of the fund basically means taking care of all the day-to-day activities of the fund. We do a lot of work on a day-to-day basis with cities all over the state. All of the monthly reporting, everything like that is all handled out of our office in Albertville, is where we do that work. We also have an advisory group then out of St. Louis Park that does a lot of behind-the-scenes investment work with the fund. When we talk about the fund, there are other parties involved. On the banking side of it, there has to be kind of a banking component to it, because whenever we're moving money between a local bank and the 4M Fund, there has to be a bank on our end, but U.S. Bank is the banking custodian to the 4M Fund. And again, that U.S. Bank was hired by the League to do the banking portion of the fund administration. Currently, we have over 400 entities in the fund, and I say entities simply because the 4M Fund is open to any municipal entity in the state. So it's not just cities. We have park districts, watershed districts, municipal utilities. All of those can also participate in the fund as a municipal entity. Of the 400, over 300 are cities. So the majority are cities, but it is open to any municipal entity. And then we talked about online access, and so we try to make the program as simple as possible to use, where cities can have online access to move money back and forth between their local bank and the fund. You can get all of your statement, all activity online, so it's very simple to use. Try to make it as convenient as possible, because we know that cities have a lot on their plate, so we want to try to make it as simple as we can for them. So when we talk about the fund, just to give you an idea of the programs that are in the fund and available to the city, we've got two different money market pools. Really not a big difference between the two, but a money market is just a short-term investment program that's available for more of your liquid dollars. And so right now, as Patty mentioned, utilizing the local money market option with the local bank. Be very similar in structure to that. But again, it would be to complement what you're holding locally, where you could use this fund maybe if you want to put some dollars out, still keep them liquid, try to earn a little more on those until you need to pull them back to your local bank. So a couple options there that the city could take advantage of. We have the liquid fund, which as its name implies, it's liquid money from the first day you put it in. You can pull it back as needed. And then we also have the plus fund. And so the plus fund, the only real difference there is a 14-day aging period with the plus fund. So the funds have to sit there 14 days, at which point they're fully liquid. Each of these funds are stable value funds. So what that basically means is you put $1 in, you get $1 out. The only thing that can change, or that will change, is the interest rate on a daily basis. It will fluctuate as the market moves. And so as of October 1, you saw the rates. Right now, they've been hovering right around that 170, 175 since they made their rate adjustment here in September. Rates came down. So it's kind of where they're kind of fluctuating right now, is right in that 170 range. Interest earnings on these money market funds are paid at month end. So your average daily balance over the course of a month earns interest on that kind of fluctuating interest rate, whatever that is, throughout the month, and then those interest earnings are paid on a monthly basis. But each fund is a stable value fund, so the only real difference is with that plus fund, you have the 14-day allocation. The liquid, well, each of the funds also would be linked to your local bank. And so again, when we're going through account setup, we get all the information on your local bank account, and that would be linked to a foreign account. So when you would log into an account, you could just move the money back and forth as needed, whether it be by a wire transfer or an ACH transaction. And so we can do that same day or next day, whatever the city might need to access those funds. So both of those money market options would be available to the city. Term series pools are just another pool program, so you would pool your money with other participating entities, but instead of it being a fluctuating interest rate that would be liquid, this is more of an investment type tool where you'd have a fixed rate, a fixed maturity. You can see the terms there with our agreement with the league. We can go anywhere from a 90-day up to a 397-day term on the term series pools. We'll generally come out with a term series pool once a month, where you'll see generally like a 3, 6, and 12-month type of option that cities can take advantage of. With any of these pool programs, these are all allowed per statute. As far as the structure of them, they're a little different than like a bank deposit where you have FDIC insurance with a bank deposit. Anything over that has to be collateralized by statute. In these programs, you're a participant to the fund, and so those securities, everything that's pooled together gets invested in securities allowed by 118A. We have followed the same rules as the city does. The city would be a participant to those securities. They have a participating interest in those securities. So the securities are basically backing your deposits. So it's a little different structure, but the concept is the same. It's 118A compliant securities that are backing your deposit. The next page then gets into the fixed rate programs. And so here is where, in the previous page, we talked about the pooled programs. You're pooling your money with other participants. This page looks at actual fixed rate investments that we can work with the city on for more of your long-term investments. With the pooled programs, you're limited. It's liquid money. You're out to 397 days with the pools, with the term series pools. Here we can look at some longer-term investments. The city has some core reserves that they know they don't need to touch for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever the case might be. We can look at some of these types of securities to try to maximize that yield where we can for the city. I won't go into a lot of detail on these different securities, but again, it's everything allowed by 118A, Minnesota State statute, that kind of governs the investment of public funds. So any of these types of programs would also be available to the city. Some of them are actual securities. So we have a PMA securities arm, and then there's PMA Financial Network that is also the arm that gets into more of the bank product, and we have access to a lot of bank products as well that we can tap into to possibly gain some yield as well. Whenever we quote rates, like we talk with the money market rates or any rates that we would quote to the city on any of these programs are going to be net of all fees. So there would never be a invoice or anything you would get from the foreign fund or from PMA. When we quote a rate, that's the rate that the city would receive. And that's all governed again by our agreement with the League of Minnesota Cities, or close to fees.
Corey, just a quick question, if
Yes.
I may. Is there an interest rate difference between the 4M plus versus the 4M liquid because of that 14-day hold?
Yeah, there's a little difference in the structure of the funds is a little different. There is actually a banking option within the 4M fund. U.S. Bank as the banking custodian for cities that actually have a U.S. Bank account as their main local bank account. They can use that account and link it. It's an auto daily sweep option with the foreign fund. So foreign fund acts as a sweep account for a U.S. Bank checking account or bank account. So it's a little bit different structure as far as the money market. So I won't go into a lot of detail there. But the liquid fund that we talked about is the one that would be linked to a bank account. If it were set up that way. So there's a little different fee structure with the liquid fund versus the plus fund. So the fees are a little higher in that liquid fund. The plus fund, because of that 14-day, gives a little more yield, but not much right now. It's a very flat market right now. So I think, as of yesterday, I think it's a 5 or 6 point difference between the two.
Is there a penalty if you had to withdraw that within the 14-day hold period?
No, so what generally would happen if you put it in there and realize you need to pull it out.
The water main breaks or something, and we need that,
Yeah.
those funds.
What in effect happens, we move it back to liquid, and you just forfeit that difference in interest.
Oh.
So, we've had that happen.
What would the ratio be that you would recommend? I'm guessing you'd want, if we had a certain amount of money, you'd want some of it into the liquid, maybe some into the plus. Is there kind of a standard ratio that you recommend cities?
Not really a ratio, more, because every city is a little different.
Yeah.
The movement of money is very simple. Again, like I said, you can go online and move between foreign liquid, foreign plus. You can do it all day long if you want to, if you're bored. So there's not a penalty for doing that. It's just that, again, if you don't need it, we obviously put in the plus. It's not going to get you a lot of additional interest, but if you don't need it for 14 days, you might as well put it all in there, and whatever that number might be.
And then just a question to city staff, what money are we talking that we want to use to put into this, if we authorize this? Is there money that's sitting out there right now that?
Yes.
In which funds?
In the general fund and in the enterprise fund.
Okay, so this would involve the general fund too, not just the enterprise?
Oh, correct.
Oh.
But I think, and Patty maybe didn't point it out, or you maybe didn't catch it at the beginning, most of that money right now that CDs really haven't been an optional item
Right.
because we're not getting anything on that. We don't really monkey around in any other major investments, so it's sitting in the money market that we have at the bank right now earning 1%. And that's it, so to speak. And so what we're trying to find as we look at it, as we look at the budgeting process, is we've tried to look at all of our different revenue sources within the general fund, and this is one of the only ones that with the consideration of adding this to the element of options, that gives us some abilities to earn a higher interest rate on the excess funds that we've got sitting there at 1%. We think we can do a little bit better. Whether we choose some part of that, half of it, 3/4 of it, that's to be yet determined, because we went through the process with the banks and we couldn't get any of them to really even bid on trying to invest in CDs any longer, so that option was really been taken away from us in that respect. So it's just trying to find another vehicle to try to garner higher interest earnings long term. And when you look at some of the funds that Patty has available, that 0.5 to 0.75% over the course of a year can add up to.
No, I think it's great. This has been around since '78, did you say? Or what?
87.
87, excuse me. I'm glad we found it now. I don't know what.
Well, no, we've known of it.
Okay.
CDs used to be an option, but over the last several years, that option has gone away. The utilities participates in a program with Wells Fargo on a different basis for the water and electric funds that's even a little bit different than this. We typically haven't gotten into investments in T-bills or any of the other federal options in that respect. And so this one is here. It's relatively easy to get in and out of. The city attorney has reviewed the documents and has blessed it, as he said. And so if we wanted to take a look at any CD products, and maybe getting ahead in his presentation, is that those could be done, and in order to ensure the FDIC insurance, those are kept at a level of $250,000, but then those are put in multiple different investment alternatives, and he shops, or they shop them with different banks, so that we have that coverage, so that we don't have to get into the collateralization issues. And so it's really just a way to deal with more of the short-term investment opportunities to try to earn a higher rate of interest. In working with the bank, we've been very fortunate in working with our local bank, where we have most of our accounts, that we don't incur any major banking costs as far as doing our banking with it, so we don't have any real charges there. So part of the earnings has been on our available funds that are on hand that the bank kind of uses, that we're getting 1%, but they're using some of our excess cash funds to help ensure that we're not charged. And I'll let our former banker respond to that if I'm off basis, but I think I'm.
Can I ask one question before you do so? It might be in what you're gonna get, but what is the interest rate on a savings account right now? I mean, is it, it's
1%.
nowhere near the 1.7.
We're at 1% locally.
Seems like a good deal to me. What do you think? Thank you.
I'm not going to speak to the past.
We've had a good experience.
But the city's policy, investment policy, is to bid those things out, and they haven't been bid out, so it's not been out of market or anything like that. It's the markets are different, and the banking industry is using money for different reasons, and it's good we have local banking relationships. This is at a point where the city has a significant amount of deposit monies, up to $20 million. So it's just prudent that we look at getting as many tools in the toolbox as we can. The times may change where you may never use this account, where there may be active bidding going on, but where the bidding is not match the market rate in a sense. It's kind of the reason, one of the reasons that we're looking at this. So it's just good to have as many alternatives, especially since the city's kind of grown their deposits over time.
One thing I'll say regarding local bank relationships, the league, when we work with the league, they want to make it very clear that the purpose when they created this was not to replace the local banking relationships, because they know how valuable those are for cities. And so they really developed this to complement what's happening locally, link it up very easily with the local bank. Like that, if the city happens to be using US Bank, we can set it up that a different way, but otherwise we can work with the local banks very easily. Any other questions on any of that information?
Well, I can ask them now, but I don't want to interrupt your.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
We all do.
The liquid fund and the plus fund, is there any margin in that referring to mutual fund? Each city has an ownership interest in the underlying security, but is there any margin? Does anybody have any skin in it, or is it we just 100%? If something fails, we just get 100% of the security.
Right.
It's not like collateralization where we get 115%.
No,
security by that.
Yeah, it's just that value of that security. And much like a city, when you have a security, if interest rates change, the value of that security changes, and so there's certain collateral requirements kind of around that, or even if the collateral is a security, that can shift on it. And so all those rules that would apply to a city for collateralization and security price changes, they all apply to the fund as well. And so those will be fluctuating all the time.
So a doomsday, worst case scenario, and you had to unwind it, would you unwind it over 3 months, or would you unwind it right away? If you unwound it right away, there's a risk of principal loss.
Right, yeah.
But if you left it for 3 months, you probably wouldn't.
Right.
So, but that's more of a doomsday scenario.
Yeah, and that would be something, again, that we would work with the league on through our advisory group, because they're doing all that investment management. So they'd be looking at that overall portfolio, and if they see some securities where maybe there's an issue with the security, if it's a municipal security, whatever it might be, backing your deposit, if there's an issue with that, we would have that discussion with the league to see what's the best way, like I said, to unwind that, to limit that loss to the participant.
The same kind of risk as you mentioned, if you had a 3-month treasury bill and you decided to sell it in tomorrow and the market's against you, but if you waited 3 months, you get your full principal back. On the eligible DTC CDs, how does the collateralization work on that if you go over the 250?
Well, we don't on those.
So there is no opportunity for collateralization?
Yeah, to kind of explain, when you look at these CD products, because they're, everybody thinks of a CD, and a CD is a CD. It's a bank deposit type of product. DTC eligible CDs are just it's called a negotiable CD. Some banks actually go through the process to the DTC is a depository trust corporation. So they go through this process to basically securitize a CD. So a DTC CD is a CD that there's a secondary market for it. So like, much like a treasury, if you wanted to sell early, you could sell it in the secondary market. There's usually, treasuries trade all the time, DTCs don't, and so there's a little higher cost to sell early if you wanted to, but it is an option. So it makes it a little more, somewhat more liquid than a traditional CD, a non-negotiable type of CD, but we can do either. And so we actually, it's kind of two different markets. It's still a CD, FDIC insurance, $250,000. It's just different markets and a different structure of a CD.
Are we setting up a brokerage relationship then?
Yeah, so part of the 4M fixed rate programs in PMA would be a brokerage relationship, plus kind of wraps around that 4M fund.
So would we be able to buy treasury bills through this
Yep.
relationship?
Yep.
And would those be just net yield to them?
Yep. Right.
And the chart, I don't know if you're getting to this chart of the yields between the liquid and the plus, are those net?
Yes, those are net all. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So again, a lot of different options. I know Mike talked about collateralization. Once in a while, there is an option where we can work with the city if we have an institution, one of the banks that we're working with that has a really competitive short-term rate or a really competitive type of a term deposit. We do have a credit department that monitors collateral on a daily basis, so that is another option available. It doesn't come up that often, but it's something that's also available to all the cities in the fund as well. So just a lot of different programs there. When we're bidding money for cities, we look at all of these options to see what seems to be the best fit based on cash flows and what the city's trying to accomplish, and we'll come back to the city with some options. This next page kind of gets into other services. So obviously we've got a lot of product options, a lot of different directions we can go when we're investing. But we also have some services, kind of some value add type of items that are available to all participants in the fund. First one being bond proceeds management. With the Dodd-Frank rules that came out years ago, there were some changes with municipal advisory rules, and so in order to invest bond proceeds as a broker-dealer, we had to be a registered municipal advisor, which we are. So through the 4M fund programs, we have this bond proceeds management program where we can manage bond proceeds. And we like to manage those separate from operating dollars for the city, because bond proceeds, municipal bond proceeds are subject to different rules than just general operating dollars for the city. So we'd like to separate those, manage those somewhat separately, use all of these same investment options, we just manage those and report on those separately in the fund. So that's available to all cities, all participants in the fund. There's no charge for the service. Again, any earnings that we get would come from the actual investment work. This is just kind of additional reporting related to the bond proceeds. And then we also have a cash flow program, and so we can work with the city, whether it's a all funds cash flow, a citywide cash flow, where we want to kind of map out what the cash position looks like, or if it's maybe just certain funds, enterprise funds or what have you. We can work with the city to kind of build that cash flow, because a lot of times, a lot of our discussion with cities is more around the cash flow versus the product. The products are what they are, the market is what it is. It's more of a, when you think you need money, let's look at what makes most sense in the cash flow. So both of these programs would be available to Prague if you were to join the fund. And then this last page is just more information about PMA. Again, all GIPs that I mentioned, we do a lot of work in that world. Kind of in the Midwest, we have one out of Florida that we work with, but otherwise it's all in the Midwest area. We have about 24.5 billion under management as of June 30th. So it's fairly large industry, and again, we're kind of focused more in the Midwest, but it's a specialty area. PMA, just all we do is public work. We don't do any private investment work. It's all governmental, public sector work. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions?
For a curiosity, or accounting question on bond proceeds management, interest income occurring on that. Is that from the general fund, or does that have to be?
That stays with.
Has to go with the bond.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah, so a lot of times the arbitrage, if you've heard of the arbitrage rules, and so that's really the purpose of that, is to track that arbitrage piece. We get a monthly report out to cities so they can kind of determine, or at least get an idea if there's a potential liability, arbitrage liability. Because if you know that in advance, you can plan for it a little bit, whereas if you find out at the end of a project that you have an arbitrage liability, you have to find those funds to pay the IRS. So we like to let cities know beforehand. Hasn't been an issue for many years because there hasn't been much interest earnings, but it has started to pop up again a little bit.
And our arbitrage and all those requirements we work with, used to be Springstead, but now Baker Tilly.
And they look at it after the fact.
Well, but we also talk through at the beginning of what's happening and what our spend down is likely to be and try to anticipate or look forward to make sure that we don't have a problem.
If you're a brokerage, how do you make your money off of it?
So it's kind of like a personal brokerage. Whenever there's a trade, there's a commission on the trade. And so again, when we, and all that's kind of, like I mentioned, with our agreement with the League of Minnesota Cities, they kind of indicate what those fees are, and there's an information statement online at forumfund.com if you want to read the information statement. And so whenever we propose a investment to the city, it's after our fee has been accounted for per that agreement with the league. So the rate that we would quote the city would be net of that fee.
There isn't any issue of having multiple accounts, so you don't have to commingle money from different enterprise funds, is there?
No, that's kind of up to the city as to how you want to account for that internally. With Forum, you can set up as many, usually have one general account, then you can set up as many sub-accounts as you want if you want to have those separated within Forum. And so some cities will have multiple kind of operating type accounts. Whenever we do bond proceeds work, we set up a separate sub-account for each issue because we want to track those separately. So it's kind of up to the city how they want to monitor those. Some like to pool it all into one account, some will divvy it up into different sub-accounts.
Okay, any other questions? Comments? Okay, I got a motion by, we do it in two resolutions, Mike? Okay, so the first, I assume your motion is the resolution to authorize a membership in the Forum Club?
Yep.
Or fund, excuse me. Okay, so I got a motion by Rick Seiler,
I'll second.
and second by Maggie Bass for the resolution authorizing membership in the Forum Fund. Any other comments or questions at this time? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. The next one is amending our depository list for 2019, which will then be, we'll redo that in January 2020 also, correct? I mean, that's when we normally do it?
We can do it right now.
No, we're going to amend it now, but
Oh.
going forward, that's normally
Correct.
we do it. So this
Yeah.
is really
First meeting
amendment
in
for the rest of the
January.
year.
Yeah. Mhm.
I just want to clarify.
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion to amend our official depositories for the cities. Got a second by Rick Seiler. There's no other comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay, next on the agenda is consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or issues on any items in the consent agenda?
Clarification, I have a question on the payment for the aquatic center. That is reflecting the June 2018 year-end, 50% of the total loss for the operation.
That's correct.
Do we normally pay it this late?
Yeah.
It's a year after the actual.
No, this is as of June 30th of
2018.
19 for the 18-19 school fiscal year.
They're very different.
We're calendar year, they're on a July 1, June 30th year.
So is this reflecting the loss for June of 2019?
Up through the end of June, is correct.
2019.
Yes.
Which we budgeted, so that when we do the budget, we get the estimate from July 1st.
Yeah.
So we don't know for our next year's budget what the number is.
We have an estimate.
We have an estimate that covers July 1 of 19 through June 30th of 2020 in our next year's budget.
Yes. Well, thanks for clarifying, because I had thought this was the June of 2018.
No.
Okay.
And this is less than what was budgeted.
Thank you.
I didn't get a chance to send you that report, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anything,
I saw the note come in, but I needed to sit down today, so I didn't get to send that to you. I was thinking we had previously sent that, though. The year
Back at
end.
the March.
I thought we sent the fiscal ending June of 2019 with the school to everybody.
Yeah, because that came out in August, early September.
I looked at my emails, I couldn't find it.
I'll try to send it to you tomorrow.
okay. Any other questions in the consent agenda?
I have a quick one too on page 4, on the enterprise sanitary sewer fund. That Bolton Bank charge for 12,000, is that about halfway down, or quarter of the way down, third of the way down?
Yeah.
Is that engineering costs or anything, or is that for the?
It is related to the design and the public bidding of the project so far.
Right.
We haven't gotten into any inspection fees.
Okay, no, but I want to know if that's still part of, my argument is that it's only 8 years old and that it's still, this is the new engineering for the new pieces?
For the biosolids project that we have.
Right, right.
We've received bids on.
Yeah, I just want to keep track of that, because as far as I'm concerned, an 8-year-old unit shouldn't be breaking down, you know, it was like almost like a design flaw to the thing. So, and I question them on that, but I still like to think
The
that.
council entered into the contract for design and inspection services.
Right.
So we're within that budgetary amount that you approved.
No, I just, I'm keeping track for myself. The description there isn't really, I just want to make sure that it was the engineering costs and stuff that would be involved with.
That would be part of the engineering design services.
Yes, okay.
Thank you for clarifying, because that's part of the bid that they put in, correct, that we okayed? That amount is part of that original amount that we okayed them for?
On the engineering services fee with Bolton?
Yes.
And the answer is yes.
Great. That's what I want. Because he's got a point.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I got a second by Sean Ryan. There's no comments or questions on any items in the consent agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay, passes 5-0. We're in miscellaneous already. Mitch? You're good? Ma'am, do you want to address the council?
No, thank
Michael, how
you.
you doing?
Hi.
Patrick, you got anything?
I'm good.
Bruce?
I'm good.
Patty?
Nothing.
Ken?
We'll have rental data collection update at the next meeting, and we'll have that on our agenda.
Okay.
Is that just going to be presentation of the information, or are you expecting a discussion of the ordinance?
Just presentation of the data at this point, see how you want to
Okay.
approach
We're
it.
going to take action though too, correct?
What's that?
Are we going to take action on that next month, or next meeting?
No, I'm just presenting information, which is what you asked us to collect.
The intent is to provide the results of the 6 months of data that we've been collecting so you can see what that is, and then for you to determine where you think you want to go.
Okay. Anything else, Ken?
Nope.
Michael?
Friday, we receive our revised technology bids coming on Friday afternoon, so we'll take a second stab at that, and we think there should be more interest than what we saw the first time, so we're expecting better opportunities to consider, hopefully on Friday. In front of you are a set of dates that we had touched base with everybody for budget workshops. We didn't get complete unanimity as to what work that we talked about doing the off Mondays in October, the 14th and the 28th.
And Mike, there's a correction here. I can do the 28th,
Oh, you can?
so that would work. I think, Ken, isn't Tuesday, November 12th, we've got park board? at 6?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. so
But that's okay. Wednesday actually appears to work better for everybody.
Okay,
So that's why I've got that one highlighted in yellow, knowing that, it was November 12th. Sean, you were gone. Or that didn't work for you.
November, what was it?
November 12th.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
Tuesday, so.
and it should not have worked for me either, because of the park board meeting starting at 6, so.
Okay, well,
So
we're not.
then that's good. It
Yeah, we're
doesn't-
not looking at that
Yeah.
one. But on the first two, next Monday, the 14th, and then the 28th at the end, I believe the only one that would miss is Bruce's schedule to not be available on the 14th.
How many meetings are you shooting for? 3? I can reschedule my activity to make it to that if you want.
Are you sure?
I don't want to be the only one now.
Well, you know,
Hold you guys up.
I was already looking, because I was thinking you were out on vacation on that.
But I can accommodate that if that turns out to be a good day for everyone.
That makes all the highlighted ones, makes you quick, right?
Then that's what we'll go with, because we've got everybody on all three then.
Okay, good.
And we're looking at getting started at 5:30.
Yep.
My only question is, do you want us to provide a bit of a meal as part of that, since we're starting so early at 5:30? Or do people want to eat outside of here? We've provided it in the past, it just depends on what the council's desires are.
County does that if you're there during dinner time.
What's that?
The county does that, so.
I could go either way.
That depends on what it is.
I work closely with Barb and I let her decide.
Well, Barb's not gonna be
So-
here. We can't do any of these meetings because Barb's not there.
She doesn't come to these anyway. She just gets your food ready though.
I can come fed.
Yeah,
I can too.
I can too.
Okay, so no food
No.
disappearing.
Provide drinks.
yeah, if you just had some drinks, you know, pop or something,
Okay.
beer or something. You know.
That's an inducement for how quickly you get through the workshop?
After half the town.
Yeah, that's right.
At your age, you just drink at home anyway.
At my age, I can't even drink anymore.
All right, we'll plan on those dates then.
It's going downhill. Anything else, Mike?
Yes, the tech, the budget workshops, update on the, quickly on the condemnations. That if you recall, when you took an action here a number of weeks ago, we went in where we were going to have to initiate action against 12 property owners. We have gotten 5 of those 12 taken care of, so we're down to 7. And it's our hope that we're going to get a couple or several of those 7, but we're likely to end up with maybe 4 or 5 that may have to go through the condemnation process unless things change differently. But I'm optimistic that as I look at what's there, 1, 2, 3, at least 3 more of those 7, so it could be in that range of 4 or 5. Those hearings, there will be actions on October 20th and 21st, 20th in Scott County, 21st in Seward County on those. The state also, we got the 2 permanent takings, so which was the church and the psychology office, accounting office on the corner. Both of those have been obtained. So that's off the table. So we're down to, like I said, 7 temporaries. And I'm hoping that we can get 3, maybe 4 of those yet before we go into that coming up here.
What's the sticking point? With the property?
It ends up being economics.
Okay.
In some cases, some people just want to have a voice in the process. But in some cases, to date, Some we have left messages with, and to date have absolutely no response whatsoever.
Okay.
Through emails, letters, individual deliveries at their place of business or residence, and so typically it comes down to generally economics in some cases, but in other cases there are reasons beyond which we're able to satisfy or take care of their issue or concern. So in that, as you recall, that if it's a matter of economics, that process can continue. Our goal in the whole process was the 90-day quick take, so that by mid-November we have title to those temporary easements, irrespective of giving that property owner the right to continue their appeal in the process based on the economic choice. And that anything we do, we don't get to necessarily settle ultimately, is then in our conversations, because we are reimbursed 100% of that. I have to go back to MnDOT and have a conversation with their real estate people ultimately, because we get reimbursed 100% of that. So I don't have the luxury of just, well, we'll pay you whatever we need to get it solved. I have to go back to District 7 and the real estate staff and have discussions on what that is. And if we can't reasonably find ways to justify the added or additional cost, then we'll just let the condemnation process play out.
And then the judge decides.
No, the condemnation jury ends up being 3 individuals that are appointed by the district court judge, people supposedly knowledgeable in the financial world. It can be real estate, it can be bankers, people knowledgeable in real estate and property values and those kinds of things. They end up, it's a panel of 3 people that are appointed to do that. So we've made progress, or hoping to make continued progress, but that's kind of where we sit at the present time. I will not be at the next meeting. That's my ICMA conference for the International Cities Managers Conference that is out of state, so cannot be the staff lead at the meeting. That also happens to be the night of the public hearing on the 2019 CIP project. We will have Chris Cabot and Scott Riggs, the city attorney, here to assist the council in going through that process that evening. So we will leave you in good hands.
Okay. But you'll be here the 14th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't miss the budget workshops. No.
Okay. Anything else?
We did have one question in case you happen to get hit, is that we did have, in regards to the 2019 CIP and the special assessment hearing that you're going to have on the 21st, there was a question from one of the 2 churches that had inquired that they thought that we couldn't legally special assess a religious church or a nonprofit like that. And we believe, we didn't respond, and I will be responding tomorrow, that in taking a look at that with the city attorney's office and the research we had done, is that we were on target. The answer is yes, we can. We happen to have 2 churches in this. It's the Baptist Church on the hill at 10th Avenue, as well as the New Day Church on 1st Street there, that special assessments can be. They had thought that there had been a recent court case that indicated that we couldn't, and we went back and found that and confirmed that with the city attorney, that there was happened to be a Baptist church up in the city of Minneapolis that was a March 27, 2017 court case in Hennepin County, and that the end result is that churches are not exempt from special assessments as a result of basically Minnesota Constitution, so they can't be charged special assessments. So just in case you had heard that from me or gotten that inquiry, churches can be special assessed. We can't do property taxes against them for general day-to-day city services, but the special assessment is obviously for a public improvement that they are directly benefiting from by being adjacent to that street improvement. the people have to get to church somehow. So they can be a city.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, Barb?
No?
Maggie?
No.
Sean?
Just a quick one for Bruce. I asked Glenn last week about a street light out on Doherty and Fourth. Do those cycle on and off? Maybe I'm just catching it at the wrong time, and
They do.
it actually does work?
Yeah, they do cycle. High-pressure sodium lamps, when they heat up, and if they're at the end of life, then they cycle off for a minute or two until they cool down, and they come back on.
Okay,
Yep, that's normal.
all right. Well, maybe you checked it out now.
Doherty, and what'd you say?
Doherty and Fourth.
Okay.
Kitty corner from Chuck's.
It was too bright, I shot it out.
Okay.
If you mention that, has anybody gotten to take a look at the new lighting on the County Road 37 project from the roundabout wrapping east around down towards the holiday station?
No, I
Have you
didn't
noticed
see
that? If you haven't driven that route,
Okay, we're all taking that route home.
please do.
Yeah.
Bruce Reimers and the electric staff have worked awful hard. If you remember from the public hearings, we heard about the issues and concerns about lighting. Well, I think there's probably some residents that wish we hadn't heard that message. But the new lighting that is up, we've also gotten favorable comments about how that has significantly improved the lighting through that neighborhood and that corridor as well.
Good. Good job, Bruce. Anything else?
No, that was it.
Rick?
Yes, I have two things. The school board, or the joint powers, do we need to put it on the agenda for next time, or should we do something right now, or how do you want to do that?
Mike, Rick is gonna replace Sean on the joint powers agreement committee. Is that something that we need to take action on?
So the council can take that action.
Yeah, but I mean, we should do a formal action on that.
Yeah, you should.
Okay.
Should I abstain?
No, not necessary.
So, I'm gonna take action on that right now. So I will appoint Rick Seiler to replace Sean Ryan on the joint powers committee. That's my recommendations. And I-
Just for the record, that's my choice, so.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome, Fred. Good luck with that.
So that's my appointment, so now I need a motion to approve that appointment.
So moved.
Motion by Bruce Wolf,
Second.
second by Sean Ryan. There's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Okay. You are now on the joint powers committee.
Okay. And I should have something better for the transportation deal. We're moving pretty down. So it is my turn, so here, yeah, I'll give you, I don't have paperwork on it. Because right now, they're establishing that we're a regional committee, and that this is gonna, it'll get our advice or our recommendations will get reconsidered. You'll have MnDOT in there, and one of the deals is that I was thinking, you know, if we were to do Scott County, their smart lane, and then see, if you go to like Shaka, people use that as an example. If you're gonna go outside the county, then you call Metro Mobility, and you pay an extra fee, and you go outside the county, you see it wherever you want, you know, doctor's appointment, whatever. And SmartLink won't do that. They won't go outside the county at all. So we basically are going to have for this community, until there's a train down at Dan Patch, and then there'll be transportation to that. But for now, I'm trying to get it so that if you do need to get outside the county, you can just call Metro Mobility. In Scott County, or in Shakopee, that's what you would do. But they cut it off right before New Prague. And that was a Met Council decision. And MnDOT and everybody was in on it. And I don't understand why, but that's the case. And that's what I would like. I would like it so that if the elderly or disabled needed to go to an appointment outside the county, they could just call Metro Mobility, and they could come from Shakopee that way. You might have to stop at a million spots, you know, but they can still get to their doctor's appointments. And then if it's inside the county, just call SmartLink, which you can already do right now. So it'd be just a matter of convincing the state government and the Met Council to just bring that line all the way up into Scott County. We'll see.
Well, I think it's partly due that we've been kind of exempt from the Met Council.
I think they did a 35W study. It cost $6 million, and it just drove me nuts. You know, what a waste of $6 million. Because the state government wasn't going to support it anyway. They're not going to support a train that comes up 35W. So the other idea was there's all them train tracks next to Jordan. So they were talking about putting a passenger train on there. And then you could take that into the city. So you would hop on like a SmartLink, go to Jordan, hop on a train, and that would take you up into the city. But that would have to be a joint agreement between the railroad and the state. And well, you're looking at two really big, dense rocks, you know. There's not a better way to explain it. I mean, you're talking 25, 30 years before you get something like that passed. So my confidence level was down. So I was thinking as, you know, why should we get too big when transportation, you know, is basically there's not the greatest need for it. You know, everybody drives, and their friends drive them or whatever. So the most least expensive would be the metro mobility idea, you know, and then you've got the Minnesota Riverway buses that also go down.
But couldn't you take SmartLink to someplace in Shakopee and then
Savage.
or Savage and call it Metro Mobility from there?
You could do that. You could do that, but if you look at transfer cost of transferring somebody like me to go into another bus, you know, you're looking at $15 just to put the buckles on. You know, there's another $15 for this. The drivers have to go through special training. It's just not a wise idea to take somebody like me and transfer them around like that. There's some.
Well, yeah, but if you could get, you know, instead of Metro Mobility, you could somehow get it subsidized through Metro Mobility, so
that could be there's a chance of
I think would have a better chance of
the Met Council giving SmartLink more money to go outside the county. You know, that would be the simplest, easiest way that we would utilize what they were already putting in place. And as far as the train idea goes, if you can get a joint powers agreement with the railroad, boy, I'll give you a silver star right now.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see. But that's where we're going with all these discussions, and I'll keep you guys updated. I'll get you a packet. Third thing was the parking on First, down by the tennis courts. I had 3 different people complain to me today. There was kids darting in and out of the cars, and they were coming trying to get through, and they almost hit some kids, and they were a little upset with me. So, and I had told them that you know, we had reviewed it at one time, I know, and I thought there was no parking on the one side of the street. I thought that's where we came up with it, but there might be a section there that isn't like that, or that isn't got signs on it. So I
don't know if it's the whole street.
Yeah, from 3rd north to basically, what would be, I think it's 5th Street Northwest. Right, the road, the gravel road, looks like an alley. That's the cutoff for the parking on the east side of the road. From that point north, the road is a little wider than the segment as you go south from there.
By the tennis courts.
Yeah, it's a little wider by the tennis courts, not much wider. I'd have to look up how much wider.
Yeah, it's not enough, because you put a bus there, you unload the bus, the kids get off the bus, and then they cut through all that traffic, and that was the complaint.
Yep.
And so what would it take to extend the no parking all the way down to, what is it, 10th, or we call it 10th or 37, or?
That's simply introduction of an ordinance and adoption of an ordinance by the council to do that. But I should have Ken just give you a brief overview for those that weren't here when the council took action with the conditional use permit on the whole CEC site as it related to parking and why we only went as far as we did and what we did. I think it's worth you hearing from Ken.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we knew it would overall be a problem with the parking there. Probably the bigger issue we've been having is getting the school to convince their patrons to park for the fitness center and the aquatic center on the, I guess it would just be the south parking lot that gets you into the main district entranceway, we'll call it.
They don't want you to go through those doors.
There's not a check-in point there. That's one of the difficult.
So they don't want fitness center.
But even for events and for, you know, even the tennis courts, get people to park up there and walk. Nobody will walk. And we knew that would be the case from the get-go, and we talked with the superintendent and other school officials at that point. We actually tried not signing the portion of First Avenue on that east side initially, determined we had to do that. And then, you know, we kind of left it open with them, hey, we'll revisit this if we need to. I know the tennis season has been, we've heard about this all fall. You know, we're only a month and a half into the tennis season and the fall sports season, that whole thing. I think I would like to probably talk to the school district more, and I haven't heard too much from the police department on calls they've gotten. I'm sure they have. So I think I'd like to talk more internally about that too. But there's plenty of parking around there. It's just not in the ideal places for people to have to.
What scares me
not
about using them parking lots for the tennis courts is, well, that's where the people from the aquatic center are going to park. So we're going to have a conflict there.
And that's why when we know there's events, getting the school to convince people to park in the other lot on the south side of the building. But that's the difficult point. People, like I said, people will not walk. If they can't see that event from their parking spot, they're not going to walk in there.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Well, but there's parking there. No one, I mean, if you're going to have parking spots available, you can't say, don't park by the tennis courts and have parking available, though. I mean, people are going to park there and the road's not wide enough. The other day, I was halfway through and some lady passed a car at the end and drove down and met me halfway and then went. And there's nothing to do. There was nowhere to go, and she ended up having to back up 100 feet.
So extending no parking all the way down.
I mean, if the parking's going to be there, there's no way to say, don't park here because it's inconvenient, but it is a legal parking spot.
As well as police and fire to try to get through on an emergency basis, or ambulance or whatnot, just as Mitch describes. The only way to attempt to begin to solve that is to put no parking all the way down one side or the other. We only took it part way, as Ken just described, to try to see how that would work, because at that time, the school tennis courts were just coming into play after the school did.
They had done an amendment to their conditional use permit to have the tennis courts down there, if you remember that. It was not in the initial request. That was going to be an overflow parking lot, actually, initially. And that was the amendment, and that's where that kind of came into play.
Well, can you follow through on this so that I can respond to the complaints that the city is reopening, reconsidering?
Well, we can go back and talk with public safety, and we can talk with the school, and come back with a recommendation of what we think needs to be done. But in simple terms, the only real solution is probably going with no parking all the way down the one side.
That's the solution I came up with too. So me and you are on the same page, Mike.
There you go. There's limited choices, but there's also, when you go to do that, all you're doing then is pushing that on-street parking issue for those activities and events. There is nowhere else to go, because I don't believe there's parking on 37, or on the old 37, so you can't park there. So then you're into competing with the aquatics facility or having to go to the south side of the building, because there's no other school property
Or the
available.
bus garage if it was late enough. There's overflow there too.
or all the way across the other side.
Well, yeah, no, they'll have to figure that out themselves. I mean, go through the course on it, but put the buses in the dang parking lot and knock it off. You know, I mean, this isn't rocket science.
Well, and that's where I think Ken was suggesting, let us go talk with the school before we actually put this into play, to see what input they have before we automatically come back and tell you that this is what we think we ought to do.
All right. That's going to be cool.
Can that area of 1st and 7th, that little dead spot, can that be made into parking? You know, it's right adjoining the crypt there. I know there
Oh,
was
the little, yeah, I get what you're saying.
There's a staging area. for
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it fit too many in there with a legally designed parking lot. I'd have to look at that more.
And that's
potentially
school owned, correct?
school owned.
But that's where the bats are.
That's where the chimney. No, it's chimney swift tower.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
What is it?
It looks like a chimney on a building, and chimney swifts live in it. A bird.
And that got replaced when they tore down the old chimney on the school property. In the demolition, they rebuilt that and provided that as an alternative relocation point.
Where's the court? It's on 1st and 10th.
Right across from the utilities.
There's
The
under-
utility building.
It's under a Swiss Center, right? And they put up a chimney.
Yes. They did.
Okay.
It's their property. Anything else, Rick?
Nope. What he's doing here, I'm done.
Bruce?
A comment on administration fee for the nuisance violations. I would just comment to maybe look at increasing that fee in the next go round.
We've increased it a few times over the years. Yeah.
If we're looking at trying to offset our staff and time with the amount of letters, engaging a vendor and then following up, I think $50 isn't doing it.
Yeah, here's the difficult part about that. So we have obviously 63 formal letters that go out. Like in winter, a lot of times we'll do door hangers because you need to remove your snow from your sidewalk before 24 hours, so we actually don't rely on letters in that case. And if they ultimately take care of it, we don't get anything back. So really we're relying on those that don't do anything. So yeah, what's an appropriate level for that? Well, I think we started out initially, I think we were about $20 per event, and now we've gone up to 50. I'm not opposed to going higher.
Yeah, in my mind, it's not the 60 people who get paid for it, but just one person. If you sat down and did the work for one person,
Yep.
and sit and figure out how many different staff are involved in that whole transaction. You can't buy a car with a documentation fee of $175.
Right.
Right.
Propose a real estate loan for $200. So, I mean, when you think of the time, we have taxpayers subsidizing that work if we don't try to keep it closer.
You do, yeah, and you know, we've tried to make it so it's a deterrent, but not where they're just gonna look at it and flip out. But yeah, if we can document it, I think we could document a higher fee.
Yeah, and I think that segues into the other discussion. You guys met with the senator, and how did that go? Or did you meet with the senator?
We did. We had, gosh, how many cities were Montgomery, Belle Plaine, New Prague, Lonsdale, Northfield,
And Elko New Market.
and Elko New Market. Obviously, we met there to talk about the whole building permit fee. If you've read these reports from the Builders Association of Twin Cities.
Because Graham's on the committee, right?
Correct.
Yep, and I think our point we tried to make to the senator was that building permit fees aren't causing an affordability crisis. It's really kind of the market, and you know, building permit fees and city fees are, you know, a very small proportion of any building fee. And I think he understood that. So if you're trying to create more affordable housing, it isn't to wipe out city fees and charges, which if you don't charge them, we're just going to go on the backs of taxpayers in the end. So I don't know if it was greatly productive, but.
Well, I thought you said that maybe they're scheduling a hearing this next session or looking at possibly doing it. So it's good to be proactive about this.
Yeah,
the agreement can be.
He actually noted that he's considered one of the experts, only though he's not, because he's a real estate broker, even though he hasn't been on the legislature for that long, but he has made his way into committee chair positions.
A good share of it was an attempt at general education and what are the things that get charged as part of the building permit fee process. What are different in our case that besides general building permit fees is that in our case, because of the fact that we built a brand new wastewater plant, is that there's an added sewer access charge for a cost for being able to buy into the wastewater plant, so to speak. Part of that goes to pay for the extra additional capacity that was needed, when the plant got built, and then part of it goes into our sanitary sewer trunk line fund. So there's a fee there, and so it needs to make sure that when you look from one community to the next, there are some things that are different that aren't consistent amongst all different cities that way. And you just need to understand what goes into there. And I think there was a general on behalf of the league was trying to do a bit of an education to ensure that I don't think all cities would agree that the materials and documents that have been put out by the Builders Association and that group that they're not as completely forthright, let's say, in what we believe all of the things are that ought to get looked into there, and that they put forth their best position and their rationale. And I think we as cities wanted to make sure he got the other side of the coin, and at least to look at other general information when it comes to permits.
2020 Main Street Project Marketing Committee has been established. My understanding is we probably have the first meeting sometime the end of October after the chamber activities goes in can. The recent other event they had is completed now. We'll have more time to establish the first meeting. That group will establish the first meeting in the next few weeks. And I had a question for you, Chuck, about the golf course, if anything new is happening with thinking of what we got
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have a special meeting, or 15th. We're gonna talk not only ways to increase revenue, but also cost cutting, and probably have to put an ad in, go back to, consensus was go back to a manager type situation.
So we wouldn't engage a management company.
Right, it doesn't sound, obviously Wade's going out of business, and it didn't sound like Jeff and Kurt were ready to jump on and take over his company. So there really is no other option, unless you look at those, what are the Bobby, a couple other ones we looked at, Mike, those real high end.
There's not enough return for them to give me to take a look at it.
Yeah, those that, they're looking for a much bigger piece of the pie. So we're looking at that, and then we're also, the discussion was, that we want to continue our discussion is maybe we bid out the food and beverage side of it and have, that's what they were doing at Shoreland. Kokomo's in Cleveland was running their kitchen and beverage system. Now they just terminated. I think Kokomo's wanted to get out of it, and now Shoreland's going back. But so yeah, those are kind of the two issues that we have on the table. I think Wednesday, the Chamber Executive Board is supposed to have their meeting, and then Sarah said she'd let us know if they are interested in doing bingo at the golf course again, or if they're going to go elsewhere. So we got kind of those things up in the air also, so hopefully we'll have some answers.
Thanks.
Anything else? I don't have anything, so I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second by Rick Sadler. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, thank you, everyone. Go Twins.
Did you say